Welcome to In the Foxhole, episode 2. This is Angela Schroeder here with JC Chanowski, and we are excited to have Dirk Van Reenen as our guest. Thanks for being here with us today.
Yeah, excited to be here and looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. Well, let's start with the audience getting to know you a little bit better. Give us your highlight reel, what you got going on in your life, what's been going on, so the audience can get to know you. Yeah,
so I'm actually an immigrant from South Africa. My family moved to the U.S. at age 14, and I kind of moved to a small West Texas town, so it is like farming and ranching and stuff like that all through high school and college. But I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur, so I've been on this journey of learning business and learning entrepreneurship, and I've been on that journey for about 20 years now, and feel like I'm finally just now starting to get into a rhythm. So we own several businesses, and we're in actual, like this week we're closing a deal on an acquisition. And then we also have a consulting and training company where we work with service-based businesses, and most of our clients are somewhere between now $1 to $20 million in annual revenue. So we've just kind of developed a cadence and a system on how to help service-based companies grow and scale and go to the next level. And then we use the exact same system in our own companies. So that's kind of what's happening on the business side. On the personal side, we actually started homeschooling January of 2020, right before COVID hit. We decided to go kind of virtual January 2020. So when COVID hit, like nothing really changed our lifestyle. We started traveling a lot more, and I've just been blessed to spend a ton of time with my wife and kids over the last couple of years, and just really living a lifestyle that I've been working for a long time to develop. So just I feel incredibly blessed and just in a really good place right now.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing all that. How many kids do you have?
So I've got 2 kids. My son Jackson is 14 and my daughter Kate is 9. And then my wife and I have been together for 21 years now. So we're college sweethearts, and been married for coming up on 17 years next year.
Congrats. That's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was way off on the accent. I was going to say North Jersey, but
North Jersey. Yeah, I think I kind of lost my South Africa. You guys obviously met Wesley at the conference, so like that's what a true South African sounds like. But mine's kind of gone away a little bit. I'm probably more Texan than anything.
Yes, he did have a good. I love listening to that. Like, you can just keep telling me a story, and I will just keep listening.
Yeah, I just wanted to do the podcast with him.
Yeah, absolutely. So, fun ages of kids. And I love that you just said that you're designing and living the life that you always wanted. Mm-hmm. Is that like the spark behind your business, and your why of doing the business and building a business is to live and design the life?
Yeah, I think, I lost the business in 2008. I got into business at age 20, and from age 20 to 27, I had a company, and that company failed in 2008. So for about 5 years after that, we went through financial hell, and we were massively in debt and just kind of trying to work to pay all the debt off. Our son Jackson was born during that time. So, Kristen and I went through a lot of financial hardship, and then I felt like I was missing some information because I was working as hard as I could, and I was trying to do everything right, but I just wasn't kind of moving ahead. So it was about mid-2012, I just kind of had this epiphany that I was missing something. I was missing information. I was missing how to do something. And I just started going on a journey of learning and studying, and hired a coach to start working with me. And so over the next couple of years, things really started changing for us and started moving forward. And then I went into leadership with another company and became the CEO of some large real estate brokerages. And, by 2015, I was a CEO of a real estate brokerage in Columbia, Maryland, doing about $800 million a year in sales with 500 real estate agents. And I was the CEO of that brokerage. And so on that journey, I just learned a lot. I had amazing coaches pouring into me, and just learned business, financials, team building, leadership, all of these kind of things at a high level. But I was heading in a path that I wasn't really excited about the future, even though it was like this really great position and everything. So we made some big life decisions in 2016 and just said, hey, what would this look like if we got to really design the life that we want to live? And so I resigned and we moved back to Houston, Texas. I started BERGflow and just said, hey, from now on, we're playing life on our terms. And, we authentically want to help people and hire great people and build great relationships in business. Because before that, I was very transactional in business. So I went through a big transformation as a human being and as an entrepreneur, focusing more on relationships and really focusing on finding and hiring amazing people, building a great teams, empowering them. And so since then, it's just been a huge life change. And then, JC, we were talking a little bit before the show started, but in 2021, I accomplished kind of a goal that I thought it was one of these things like, this thought of like, what if I have like a 10-year or 15-year goal, and what if I can accomplish that in the next year? Like I really kind of like took on a challenge like that. And so we bought kind of our dream property. We bought a ranch in Palo Canyon here in Texas and opened an outdoor adventure park. And so now we bought a house in Fort Worth in December last year. And so we're kind of spending time between Fort Worth and our ranch now and traveling a lot. And so it is all by design. And I think like that's the cool thing is that you don't have to live as a passenger in life. You can really get in the driver's seat and start designing the life that you want. And I mean, I think you can design the business that you want, the people that you're around. I think owning a business and being an entrepreneur is one of the coolest creative forces, in life, because you get to create environments that you bring other people into and you design things and do things. So it's just a cool experience.
That was a lot. And that was a lot to unpack right there. I mean, we went from being the first entrepreneur in your family, it sounds like.
No, my dad was, I come from a long line of like farmers and ranchers. So, and I think that's why I have like a deep love for land. But no, I grew up, my dad in South Africa, he was an entrepreneur. He was farming and ranching and he had a couple of businesses. So I saw that blueprint of somebody going out there and starting something and being able to do that. And I do think that, growing up, when you see that in action, it just becomes a part of your DNA as well. And, even with my kids, I mean, we talk about entrepreneurship a lot. We homeschool, right? So our kids, they spend a lot of times. Most of my friends are all entrepreneurs that own businesses, and a lot of my friends now homeschool. So they constantly get to be around adults and other kids and stuff that are living very different type lifestyles, and they get to see what happens when you're willing to take the risk and start a business and work like hell for no money for a while usually. And, but it's like, they see that. And, my son is kind of leaning towards wanting to do that. My daughter's like, the way that she talks about things, she's 9, she wants to go more through a traditional route, but like, and that's totally fine. I'll support them either way. But I do believe because of the lifestyle that they live, that they will come back to entrepreneurship one day. And I've seen that a lot with friends that have owned businesses and their kids are now kind of getting into their mid-20s and stuff like that, is they tend to gravitate back towards wanting to be part of the business. But I also think that it depends on the kid's experience, right? If they believe, like a kid growing up, if they believe that the business was more important than me to my parents, yes, they'll resent business, they'll resent entrepreneurship, and they'll want to go a very different path away from that. And I've seen that a lot. And I think like that is like greatly sad, right? That's very sad when kids grow up believing that my parents loved their business and cared about their business more than they did me, because they always spent time with their business. They were always on their phone. They were always on their email. They always told me like, hey, I just have to do this thing. No, we can't go on vacation. I got to do the business thing. Like when they grow up believing that a business is more important to them, I think that they end up resenting that. But if they grew up in a household where they saw the good, bad, and the ugly about business, and yet they were a priority above the business, I think that they'll definitely gravitate back towards that.
Yeah, and that's hard as an entrepreneur, because you get so focused on trying to win with the business. Meanwhile, you're losing at home because you're so focused on the business. And I think it was 5 years ago, I was out on the boat with my family and some friends. It was a Tuesday, I think. And we're out for about 2 or 3 hours. And I'm like, kids, we got to go. And they're like, Dad, why? I'm like, I have to go to work. And I remember my oldest child, she was probably 7 years old at that point. She's like, Dad, you work too much. And that was like the breaking point for me to realize, like, she's right. Like, I could have put that on pause and done that later on the day or something and focus on the family. But it's being able to recognize that the family should be coming first. The business, will be there, and it's gonna, you can get back to it later, but the family, you're gonna miss that first birthday. You can't get that back. You can get another customer back, but you can't get the first Christmas back. You can't get the first walking, the talking, all those things. So it's very important to understand that and respect your family that way.
and what picture are you showing them? Like you just said. So I am in that stage of my kids are in their early 20s, and that they've seen the picture of building a business and building different businesses and stages and what that looks like. And I think the biggest thing that they catch, as long as you're trying to do the balance well, and like you said, they don't feel like the business was more important than you, is they will have that, they do have that itch for designing their life. And wait a second, our life looks completely different, looks completely different than anybody else's. And they almost don't understand the concept. I mean, they both right now are working for other people, but like somebody else tells me what to do. And my daughter describes it in a way, though, is like, I'm not sure, Mom. I just can't figure out if you're always working or if you're ever working.
I think that's a good place to be. And I would say like that's a fully integrated lifestyle. There's no separation between work and play. And I think like that is such a cool place to be. And, and that's really started happening for me over the last several years. Like I've always enjoyed work. I love working hard. And I'm one of these people, like I don't mind, if I have to work 60 or 80 hours a week every single week, I don't mind that. But like the cool thing is that a lot of the work that I do, I include my kids in. Like the week that you guys were in New Orleans, I took my kids to Moab, and we just took a dad and kid trip, and we were there for 10 days. And I would do some work in the morning, and we'd go out and play with our friends in the afternoon. And we had some business meetings in Moab and stuff like that. And I mean, a lot of times now is like, I'll take my kids to business meetings with me, and they get to see everything. Like I am very open with them about when I'm working on a deal and the deal's going well, or it's going south, or I've got something with a business partner. I mean, I leave nothing, on the table for my kids either. Like I want to see the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. And I think like it's cool when you get to a place where it feels integrated. Like you can't tell the difference between work and play anymore. And I think that is, Angela, you said something powerful. Is like you kind of set the stage for what your kids see. And it's one of these things that, a lot of times we want to tell our kids what to do or not to do or whatever, but they're watching us. Like they're watching us as the example of what to do and what not to do, or how to approach things. So I think living that example in business is really important. And, JC, I think you said something really important too, is that, and you go through in seasons that, there are seasons in business where you just have to go really hard. And, it's one of those things that if you don't get over this hump and build the momentum to the next level, you'll never have that liftoff, right? You'll just get stuck in this grinding machine that'll grind the life and ambition out of you. And at some point you end up resenting your business and you hate what you're doing. And, it's sad because we meet people all the time. We got clients that have like $3 to $5, $8 million businesses. And they're just like, you know what? I just want to drive the thing off a cliff. Like I hate my company. And people think like, oh, when I have a $2 or $3 or $5 million business, like life is going to be awesome. Except if you did not build it correctly, it can be an absolute curse as well. So yeah, but it is like small businesses. It's messy.
Yeah, I did a post 2 days ago, and I just did a picture of my team and the trucks out there, 5 trucks, and I think we have 9 or 10 technicians out there. And somebody said, I would never want to go back to that. I really enjoy doing it on my own. And I was like, why? I was like, I'm having fun doing what I'm doing. I've built the team, I built the framework, and they're there doing the things that without me having to be there. So if you build it right, build that framework, you can scale it and still have fun doing it. That's what's really important for me in anything I do. If I'm not having fun doing it, I don't want to do it. I'm having a lot of fun in life right now because of my team, because of what we built and the successes we can celebrate together. So that's really important. It doesn't matter if you have a $5 million company or $500,000 company. You can find happipiness in that with your team and doing it the right way.
Yeah.
Well, I think the challenge is, right, is that people kind of grow and they do a good job. Because I believe like if especially in the kind of service space today, commercial or home service space, if you show up and you do a good job and you're consistent and you take care of your clients, your business is going to grow. Like we've met so many companies that don't have growth divisions. They don't spend a lot of money on marketing, and they're growing like crazy. They're growing 30, 40, 50% a year. And these are already multi-million-dollar businesses. The market demand for, and sometimes like, I don't know if this is a politically correct term or not, but for a lot of blue collar type businesses, there's such a demand today because these businesses are falling by the wayside left and right. I mean, there's a statistic that came out 2 years ago that So this was kind of 2021, that between 21 and 31, 6 million small businesses would shut down. And these are like viable small businesses. These aren't like, like a home-based like business or something like that. This is like an actual like business that's going out there and doing things. They would shut down because there wouldn't be any kind of transition for them. They won't be able to kind of get the next generation and take it on. They haven't built it correctly. They haven't kept up with technology. And this is why, and I'm sure you guys have seen this, is like mergers and acquisitions are going nuts right now in home services, right? Like private equity didn't used to come down and buy anything lower than $10 million businesses. They're showing up at conferences now and they're making offers on $1.5 million like home service business, because COVID also showed that these are essential businesses. There's a lot of opportunity here. So I think that there's massive opportunity to grow these companies, to scale these companies, to go out and find other people that would ordinarily just shut their company down and build a relationship, learn how to merge it in or acquire it, make a good deal for the owner to where they're happy. They have some sort of an exit. You just acquired more business as well. So I think like there's so much opportunity in that space in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. We see it all the time right now, even the washing industry. And like you said, they're coming down looking for everybody. If they got some type of net profit, they're looking to buy them all right now. It's insane. It's a good time to be a small business owner if you build a framework and you did it right. So I just want to go back. Well, two things real quick. One, I love the fact that we talked about the children, because I think as entrepreneurs and being able to educate our kids while not forcing them to want to be an entrepreneur, because that's one thing that I found early when I was talking to my kids. Like I felt like I was pushing the entrepreneur world into them, and I didn't want them to resent it and not want anything to deal with it. So I backed off a lot. And now when I pick them up or we go someplace, they're like, Dad, can we go to work today, or can we stop by the office? So that's fun to see them see what we're doing and want to be involved with it without me saying you're gonna do this, because that could really change their mindset to like, I want nothing to do with this. So be an advocate to them and be, like you said, transparent. Let them see the things that you go through, the highs and the lows, because that's important for them to see.
I can relate to that. It's kind of like you want your kids to want to be an entrepreneur. And it's like, I find myself wanting to like encourage my kids, like to start a little business or do something.
Yeah.
It can't be forced, So I know one thing that my dad did, because I was, again, like farming and ranching in high school. And I mean, he worked the hell out of me, even in high school, I never had weekends. I didn't go on summer trips. I mean, like I worked, from 14 years old, and especially as I started kind of getting to like college age, he made me work longer hours in brutally cold weather, brutally hot weather. And he would tell me, he said, like, this can be your future, or you can go out there and do something different. And it's kind of like, so that's my son now is 14, and, he is out here on the ranch, and I mean, he is mowing grass like crazy right now and weed eating. And I mean, he's like, same thing. I want to teach him that, like, look, this can be the path for you, or you can choose a different path. Like you have the option to choose that.
Right. I love that. My dad likes to threaten me when I go in his garage. He's got all the stuff saved up over the years. He's like, this will be yours one day. I'm like, I don't want that. But let's go back to, it was in 2007, you said, when the business first didn't go well, right? You lost your first business?
Yeah, 2008. Yeah.
2008. So what was the catalyst for that? And I mean, obviously that had to be a very trivial time in your relationship and life to figure out how you're going to get through that, what to do next. So what steps did you take, and who was there for you to help you get through that situation?
Yeah, that was tough. I was in the ski and snowboard industry. That's what I did for the first 7 years of my working life. So, which is a super fun industry to work in as a young 20-year-old. And, kind of during that time, most of my friends were like mid to late 30s, even when I was like 21 years old, because all the rest of my friends were either still in college or, they had jobs and stuff like that. And I was a business owner at a young age. But that all came crashing down in 2008. And I used to kind of, for about a year or two, I kind of carried this grudge that, well, it was because of the economy, and it was because there was a big drought in the Southwest, and it wasn't good snow for several seasons and all this kind of stuff. But the truth is, about 4 years into my journey, I moved locations, and I went kind of from like a B- location to like an A+ retail location, doubled the size of my retail floor, brought in some extra summer lines, and And the truth is that I made decisions that caused me to fail gradually and then suddenly. And this is a term that, one of my mentors, Gary Keller, always says is like, success and failure are both gradual and then sudden, right? It's like you work your ass off for 20 years and all of a sudden you're an overnight success and people are like, oh, you must have cheated or something. And you're like, no, I worked hard for 20 years, but failure is the same way. People don't just fail. Like when people fail at something, the failure point has been building gradually for a long time. And a lot of people, they're like, oh, well, it was the economy or was this or was this. And like, that's just bullshit. It's not. Like when people fail, it's because they've been failing gradually for a long time and then suddenly it shows up. And that's exactly what my situation was, right? Yeah. So I had a lot of self-evaluation to do. I had a lot of learning to do. And I remember not so long after this, because I mean, it was shocking. Like my landlord actually showed up at my business with a locksmith. And he walked in and he said, grab your cash register and we're locking you out, because I was behind on my rent. And so I had to kind of grab my cash register. They changed the locks and I was locked out of my own business, and I mean that, I'm like 27 years old at this point and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do? And I remember I woke up the next morning and for the first time, like I had like no purpose. Like, what am I going to do today? Like I've got hundreds of thousands of dollars of inventory that's locked up in a business, in a room that I can't access. And, so, I mean, I was just kind of like, I didn't know what to do, and, so I kind of went and hung out with my uncle that next morning. He was a knife maker. He and his family had also kind of immigrated to the US at that point. And I kind of sat there in the garage and he was making knives and he was talking and, and he said something to me and he said, well, as a young man, you have a lot of dreams and like over time, you'll find that those dreams start kind of disappearing. And I remember like sitting there and like in that moment, I just told myself, I was like, no, I have dreams and this will not define me. And about a week later, my dad was in town and kind of we went out for coffee and he said, look, I know this is hard. I know what you're going through right now is hard. And he said, but don't let this get you down. He says, take the time to kind of learn what you need to learn during this time and like get back at it. My parents, were first generation immigrants. Like, I mean, they weren't in a position to help me out. Like I didn't have anybody in my life that could just like bail me out. There was an attorney that was really cool and he actually helped me kind of settle everything with my landlord and he was able to kind of help me get all my inventory out and he actually co-signed a loan with me for like $20,000 to kind of pay off some stuff to just kind of get things going. And so there were some people that like helped me through that transition, but I mean it was brutal. I went to work after that for an auctioneer and I was making $2,300 a month in 2008. And we had just bought a house the year before when you can like fog a mirror and get a home loan. So we had this house, we were expecting a baby. I mean, it's just like, and I promised my wife, like one thing that we were on the same page about since we started dating, early 20s is that, she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. Like that was really important to her. And my promise to her is like, once we have a child, you can stay home with our child. You won't have to work again. Well, all of this happened during that time, right? So we went from 2 incomes to 1 income, hardly making everything. And my interest on my debt alone was like $30,000 a year. And I was making $2,300 a month, right? Plus a mortgage, plus all this kind of stuff. So the next 4 years were hell. I mean, like it was just a battle. We didn't take a vacation for over 4 years. We didn't really leave town. We couldn't afford to take a vacation. We're constantly fighting foreclosures and just trying to pay things back, and, we were kind of just barely scraping by. And that's like in 2012 is like when I had this moment of just realizing I am missing something. If I'm working this hard and I'm trying to get ahead and nothing's happening, but I see other people that are able to do this, it must be that I'm missing some information. So I kind of dove in and I just kind of had this epiphany that I needed to find something. And, it's one of these things that the epiphany came like, I got home one night after work and I was working like 7 days a week, 12, 14 hours a day, 16 hours a day during this time. And I was hardly ever home when my son was little, Jackson. And so I come home one night and I kind of mentioned like we'd been fighting like foreclosure notices and all this kind of stuff for a while, but I got a certified letter like, hey, your house is going to, courthouse steps auction, right? And this is in 2012. I was 4 months behind on my mortgage. And I remember that night I just felt so desperate because I had hardly any money in my bank account. I didn't know what I was going to do. And during this time, I'd also started kind of back in 2009, I started a little auction company just to sell contents. And Prudential had hired me to start a real estate auction division for them because I'd kind of learned that business. But I had no clue how I was going to pay this. And I remember I kind of went online one night and I was just kind of like, okay, what am I going to do? And I was searching a lot of stuff and I ended up on a Tony Robbins website. And I think like so many other people have. And I watched some YouTube videos and I ordered this thing called the Ultimate Edge. And it was like, in 30 days, you can get whatever you want. And I was like, I got to pay my mortgage in 30 days. Right. So I buy the thing as it was CDs back then. And literally like, the box of my wife was like, what are you doing spending this money? It was like $300, but I had to make payments, right? Because I couldn't even afford $300. My wife was like, okay, what are you doing? Why are you spending this money? We can barely, buy groceries. Like, why are you spending this money? And it's just like, I just feel like I'm missing something and like, this is it. And as soon as I got those, I was listening to Tony Robbins like 24/7. Like, I mean, every moment that I had, I was just listening to it. And my mindset started changing very quickly. And one thing that's always been really good, in the way that I operate is I'm an extremely fast implementer. So we kind of talked about this is like, look, you just need to I need to have an inkling of a direction and what's going to happen, and I will jump off the cliff. Like, I've got a really high tolerance for risk. So I just started kind of like practicing this. And I mean, between mid 2012 and mid 2014, our life had like completely started changing. And I went from kind of selling about, 27 houses a year to selling 120 houses a year, and built a team during that time. And that's when Keller Williams hired me to kind of become a brokerage CEO for them. And so the next several years was just like this upward rocket trajectory that just completely changed everything. But I mean, there was a lot of, deep hell that we had to go through financially before things started turning around.
Yeah, you talked about two things there. One was the mindset. If you have that failure mindset, then you're just not going to be able to overcome those challenges and get through life. But you believed in yourself by investing that money into those CDs. And it might have sounded crazy at the time because you had so much bills and everything else you had to focus on. But you saw that was your answer, the light to get you out of the tunnel or the darkness you're in, the trenches. And you went all in on it. You jumped off the cliff, you bought the CDs, you listened on the way down, and you were able to bounce back from that and just flourish into your the sales with the homes and everything. So that's incredible.
You have told such a great story of pivotal moments and nuggets that I'm lost in. I get lost in your story and I'm like, oh, wait a second, we're doing a show. I can just listen and like, wow. And when you talked about that conversation with your uncle and what an eye opener that was of, no, that's not going to be me. That how many people do believe that, like, well, eventually your dreams die, and recognizing, no, that will absolutely not be me. And, then you had to change your mindset and do the things, whatever, but knowing like, no, I am not going, there are two directions my life could go, and I'm not going in that one.
Well, I think a lot of times, and this is something that, when we do trainings and work with clients and people, because most of our clients are probably between, I would say, 45 to 65 years old. We work with a lot more established type companies and people that are either wanting to get ready for an exit or really are ready to grow their company. But a lot of times the way that I kind of explain it is like, there's all these dreams and visions that you have in front of you, and like one by one, you kind of take one and you put it in your back pocket, and you take one, you put it in back pocket, and you take one, you put it in back pocket. And one thing that we encourage people to do when we start working with them is say, hey, let's reach back in those back pockets and let's pull all those things that were important to you as a kid, as a young adult, like those dreams you had, like, let's pull them out and see, is there anything there still? And it's so amazing when people start pulling those back out and they start getting those out in front of them. They say, man, I had this dream to do this thing and this is important to me. And then we're like, all right, well, how can we incorporate that into what you're doing now? Because again, I think so many people look at business in a very linear way, and like, business is not linear. Business is absolutely dynamic. You can design the company you want. There's a million ways to build a company, even in the same industry doing the same thing. There's so many different ways to do it. And I think when you start getting really clear about the things that are like most deeply innate to you, the things that like tug at your heartstrings, and you can start aligning what you do day in and day out with that, like what I would call like your calling or your purpose, and it could be whatever it is. That's when things change. Like that's when things become more personal, becomes more relational. It's when you're going to wake up with more energy, and you know, when you're just out there running a business and you're trying to pay your bills and survive, like it's hell, like it's a curse. It's not a blessing anymore. It's a curse then. And the sad thing is that most small business owners are not actually business owners. They're self-employed, and they're grossly underpaid and overworked, right? So it's one of those things that you got to change some things if you really want to build a business that is a blessed business that can really honor your life and what you want to do and the people that are in your life.
Yeah. And that's part of that mindset. And for me, if I'm not having fun doing it, I don't want to do it. I love what I do now. I'm very passionate about what I do now. And that really did change over the last few years. I thought I knew what I wanted to do. And I thought just having the business run and be successful was a win for me. But I found that inside I wasn't satisfied. I wasn't happy with what I was doing. So it took some getting deep with myself and thinking of like, what do you really want to do in life, JC? And once I figured that out, and it might even change in the next 5 years, but at this very moment, like I'm excited to go to work. I look forward to being there. I look forward to talking to people and sharing my experiences with them. And that's important as an entrepreneur and business owner to figure that out.
You've talked a lot about that difference in you can design your business just like you can design your life. And you took this struggle that you had, this big struggle that you went through, and not only did you rework, you kind of told in the beginning of like the journey that you went on and having to, you know, do the personal work yourself first to get there, to get yourself to a different person, but you've taken that to a level in your new business of figuring out like what went wrong, all the things that went wrong for you. And I love the comparison that you said too, that most business owners are self-employed. Yeah. They are not designing their business, but taking it in this new, it gives me chills the way you describe what you're doing now in your business and helping other business owners do that. Not just a coach that is a blueprint and like, here, we found the blueprint. We know exactly, do the blueprint that the other lawn and landscape company did, or the other washing company did, follow the blueprint, that you're really helping people design a business and a life that aligns with them.
Well, I think that's really important because like, you know, the more I think about kind of what BERGflow is, I would say it's a lifestyle company. And, you know, we more and more we're doing really fun things. I mean, part of the, you know, what we're doing here at Maris Adventure, at our adventure ranch here in Texas is, you know, we built a classroom here and we got cabins and things like that. Is like, you know, starting to bring clients out here and, you know, get in the outdoors. It's like, hey, let's spend the morning in the classroom and then let's get in some, you know, awesome Jeeps and go off-roading this afternoon and go climb through some caves. And, you know, some of the best conversations happen when we're out there in Jeeps and we're, you know, just kind of sitting in a beautiful location and we're just having like really authentic conversations because, you know, I think in kind of what you guys said, you know, that, you know, in the Foxhole is about is that, you know, business isn't this like nice, neat, pretty thing. Like entrepreneurship is not like the Instagram reel that everybody thinks that it is. I mean, owning a business is messy and it's stressful and it's like you got to deal with like nonstop issues and the way that you overcome that is you grow as a person and as a leader and you hire people and you pour into them to become leaders. Like that's the only way that you survive this journey in entrepreneurship. If you can't become a leader and you can't pour into other people to become a leader, you'll never be more than self-employed. Like you won't build a business, right? A business is that you've got systems, models, and people that can function without you being present. Like that's what a business is. Anything less than that is actually being self-employed. And most people don't think about it that way. You know, you meet people all the time that like, oh, I've got this like $500,000 a year business. And like, no, you don't. You got a $500,000 a year job that brings in $500,000, but how much is left in your bank account at the end of the year? So that's the question.
I want to talk about like just celebrating the fact that I'm sure your wife's a stay-at-home mom now, enjoying the things that you promised her years ago, right?
Yeah, and actually, I was able to honor my commitment to her from day one. So since our son Jackson was born, he's 14 years old now. She's been able to stay home and you know kind of run our household and I think like that's been a huge blessing for me too because you know because she is committed to that and really taking care of our kids and our household. it has allowed me the freedom to travel, to do the things that I need to do without, kind of having to sacrifice certain things in kind of the support that our kids need. And, obviously that doesn't mean it's always been easy, but it really has been a blessing, and now as our kids are getting a little bit older, she's starting to kind of think about, okay, what are the things that she's passionate about? And, she's really passionate about like natural health and living a clean lifestyle in the way that you eat and, what you put in your body. And so she's learning more about this, and she's trying to kind of get into that world. And that's been huge for me, her commitment to health has been amazing for our family, for our friends. So it's cool to see that she's got the space to be able to, there's no requirement. Like, she doesn't have to go to work. She doesn't have to do any things, but she gets to now choose what she wants to do. And as the kids get older, like what her path will look like. And I'm really excited to see what that looks like and support her on that journey as well.
I love that. Yeah. I love that for you. I love that for her and your kids and everybody around you. Cause it just shows that, you went through these hills and valleys in life and in the trenches, and you're able to get out through resiliency and mindset, and now live the life that you had promised her, and celebrate that together.
Yeah. Well, I think entrepreneurship at the end of the day is just about grit. Like, if you don't have grit, you're not going to make it, no matter how smart you are or how good you are, how well you're connected or how well funded you are. If you don't have grit, you're not going to make it.
Absolutely. Well, Dirk, I greatly appreciate you coming on today. So if our viewers want to get a hold of you or want to find more about BERGflow or Maris Ventures, can you just tell them where to go?
Yeah, so BERGflow, just BERGflow.com, BERGflow.com, or Maris Adventure. Like, if anything from company retreats to bringing your family out for an amazing outdoor adventure or a group of friends, whatever it is. We got events out here. We've got a training center. Like, so if you guys ever want to host an event out here or anything like that, like we can make that happen for you. And that's, at Maris, MERUS Adventure. But yeah, that's kind of the two ways to get a hold of me.
We might be scheduling something.
That was the look of like, ready? Let's go. Let's schedule something.
No, it is awesome. Like, we've had some people that have come out here and done things. They're just like, man, this is the coolest experience that we've had for a mastermind or a group. Right now we can facilitate a group up to about 16. So a really nice and intimate group, and you can spend time in the classroom, you can spend time on hikes, or we've got off-road vehicles, or we've got guides that'll take you out. Everybody gets to drive as well. So people love that. Even if they've never off-roaded before, we put them in like some awesome Jeeps, and they're running over rocks and all kinds of cool stuff. And we've got caves. So it's just a cool experience to get outside of your comfort zone and connect with other entrepreneurs or people like that. So if you guys ever want to host something like that, please let us know.
Well, you got me excited. Thank you for being vulnerable and telling us your story. I mean, it was an incredible story. I appreciate you telling us the highlight reels, being in the trenches, talking about the family, because that's really important to me and Angela too, as well, as entrepreneurs with kids. And thank you. I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a pleasure to meet you guys on the podcast, and I hope to meet you live, sometime soon as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, folks. Well, that's it for episode 2, and we will be back with some more. Thank you.